Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sean LaFlock. I'm here with Scotty Hagnes. This is Conversations, Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity. Scott, how goes it, my man?
Yeah, it goes pretty good.
You look
Back from vacation.
you look
So
fresh. You look recharged. You look like a new man. How you feeling?
actually really good. This is maybe the most refreshed I've come back from vacation. Maybe since I opened the gym, honestly. I don't know.
Sounds like a little
Usually
different. Sounds like a little different vacation than many of the others, Scott. What was the difference, you think?
yeah, it wasn't any longer than any others. In fact, it had some circumstances going in that could have made it really more hectic. But
Uh-huh.
I think just, relaxing and really just doing what we wanted to do, which ended up being a lot of training actually. um,
Okay.
and but not in a a have to do it kind of way, just kind of let it develop organically, and just a lot of fun.
Very cool. And where were you, Scott?
I went to Sedona, Arizona, so kind of
Nice.
classic red rocks, lots of hikes and mountain bike rides and rock climbing and stuff like right near the city.
Yep.
It's not that big a city, kind of in northern Arizona, so
Yep.
hot.
I
But
was going to ask, how's the weather down there?
I mean, for one, my wife and I like the heat,
Yep.
and we live in Portland. But it was dry. Like I was out riding in the middle of the day, in the middle of the sun, and it was fine. There's a light breeze that is almost always going there too, in the dry. I sweated much less than I do here on a warm day, that's for sure.
Mm.
And even when we got our final day, we were down in the Phoenix area, and that was like a 104, I want to say. And I was just sitting outside reading and doing stuff, kind of killing some time, and
Yeah.
didn't feel bad. Didn't feel bad at all.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The time that I visited Arizona, I felt the same way. I mean, hot is hot. Like when you get into a 115-degree car, it's hot.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it's that it's definitely when you're kind of sitting in the shade, there's some relief, and then you're not sticky like you are in, let's say, humid heat.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really pleasant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Very cool.
Yeah.
So, as we were speaking about this earlier, Scott, it kind of got me thinking of how important it is to have these, recharges, whether they're vacations or just extended times off from training, and how a lot of people will actually benefit from it. I see people within my own facility and clients that I work with who have been training for a while and seem to be stagnant in their, whether it's weight loss progression or strength progression or whatever it might be. And, it's very easy for us to say, okay, what's the next training program? How are we going to, push volume more, push intensity more? But I think a lot of the time it's almost like, all right, so let's actually just shut it down for a little while. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think in lots of cases that is, if you're stagnant and you're not an extremely advanced athlete, I would say there's probably about a 95 to 99% chance you're a little overextended. And your body is no longer adapting. It's just surviving the stimulus you're putting on it. Because progress should be, pretty gradual until you're really reaching the outer limits of your physical capabilities. And I think, and in all forms of life, I mean, training is just one area, I mean, so many times those of us that are in the gym, on a very consistent basis, and it's a part of our lives. It's not the only thing we're trying to do well at, right?
Yeah.
We have a business and we're trying to do well there, or we work for a corporation and we're trying to, get a better position, make more money. Maybe we're trying to finish an education, raise a family, or hitting it hard in all areas of your life, and it's just not really possible to do all that, at least not all the time, right? There's something kind of stagnating or taking a back seat. And so I think the mental recharge, the nervous system recharge, the ability to let some deeper regeneration happen can really spur some forward progress. Like I said, I came back, from this, like I've been on fire to like accomplish a bunch of things, projects that I haven't been able to get to, and like kind of what's next. I've been in this game here now for, most of a decade and a half, with the facility being one of the originals. And, it's kind of like, all right, I've been kind of just doing the status quo because I'm busy, but could I do better,
Yeah. It's a good point.
The break has allowed me to actually really consider that, think about it, and, come up with some ideas that I think are, kind of sound.
Yeah, it's very easy for us to kind of get caught in the day to day and rest on our laurels a little bit and be like, oh well, things are good. But I think when we do go on vacation or get one of those recharges away from what we were doing, it gives us perspective and it gives us some time for our ego to kind of expand or contract a little bit, and for us to expand and see what our real purpose is. And when that happens, all of a sudden, like you said, you're inspired to do new things and work on some old things and look at the things that you've been doing from a different perspective, and start to question why you're doing those things a certain way, so that maybe you can do them a different way, or with different people or in a different setting, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been, on a personal level, as things that I've been interested in exploring lately have been really a lot more in breath work, which is of course becoming a new, big untapped area, and just playing with that is in terms of my own performance and some of my clients' performance and recovery, and the different things that this can all play into. And I kind of have a whole little different mindset about how I would organize the hierarchy of developing somebody that comes to me, straight away now. On some of the things that are kind of a little more foundational. And these are not brand new things. We've obviously talked about these some, but just continuing to learn more in those areas and what we can do.
Yep. I worked with a client the other day who was looking to do some Olympic lifting work, and it's interesting because I was like, all right, let's take a look at your Olympic lifts. And like within like 3 minutes, I'm like, oh, okay, let's stop Olympic lifting. You know what I mean? Like let's just put that aside for a second. Let's just take a look at, some basic movement principles and that kind of stuff, and regress things to a supine position. All right, let's see if you can actually get yourself into a neutral position with your hips and your rib cage, that kind of stuff. And that's not what everybody wants to hear, and not everybody is willing to regress it that far. And some clients, they don't need to regress it that far. I mean, work on some cues first and be like, all right, do this, and if it works, great. Now you're getting the result you want. But I'm becoming more and more. It's becoming more and more apparent that if you move well, whatever it is that you have to then do seems to just fall into place. Whereas if you don't move well, it doesn't really matter what kind of cues or techniques that you're practicing. It just doesn't really work as well.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you're fighting against an uphill current, if you don't move well, and chances of getting correct movements and something more complicated are about zero.
Yeah, or you're going to find that that person is really, really good at compensating. And they get it done in a funky way. It just works. And then, okay, let's go ahead and push the intensity or push the weights or something like that. And they're like, oh, wait, all right, now you're breaking down. So it's like, okay, what did we do? Did we actually help this person, or did we actually subject them to short or long-term, harm in terms of their training progress?
Right. Yep. Yeah, and I think just recognizing what it should be a lifetime project, right? You don't have to rush to, clean and jerk, 100 kilos or whatever. You can maybe it's going to take a few years of development stuff, but you probably have decades to go still. So
yeah, it's a very good point. Very good point. If you have somebody coming in and they're like, "Oh, I've been training for a year," I'm like, "Okay, so that gives them about 29 more years of training. What can we do in that time?" You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because we're looking to get them to such a high level so quickly. It's like, well, it doesn't work like that. Like anything that we do, anything outside of training in our lives, we know we're going to have to spend an extensive amount of time, not only learning the basics, but then failing a bunch of times and finding what your way is. You know what I mean? Not everybody's path is going to be the same. And the failures that you have, as long as you're kind of like taking them into account and learning from them, you're going to get to where you need to be. However, if you're constantly, trying to push the limits all the time, it's almost like we get caught looking at the numbers instead of actually just looking at the progress.
Right. Yeah, I think that is the danger. A lot of times is like people get so wed to certain numbers. Us Westerners love our numbers, right?
Yeah.
and not really seeing that there is progress still being made. The progress is really the goal.
Yep.
So yeah, the other ones, while measuring sticks, are kind of somewhat irrelevant. But yeah, it's interesting how we look at our fitness in a completely different light that you would look at any other activity, right?
Yep.
I'm motivated to get a master's degree in whatever topic.
Yep.
Am I going to try and think that I can realistically accomplish that in 6 months from scratch? I'm going to do, like multiple years of education, and I'm going to get it done in 6 months. I'm maybe kind of pissed off if I can't.
Yeah.
And even if I could somehow force myself to do that by drinking buckets of coffee and staying up on, how much of that would I have actually retained at the end of that 6 month period?
Yeah, I think that's an important concept. Is that so to get a master's degree, let's say, because that's the example that you gave, what are you trying to accomplish, right? You're trying to acquire enough knowledge to have a mastery of a subject. So if you just, like, let's say, I don't know what you have to do to get your master's. I don't know if there's a test at the end of it. I know at a PhD you have to defend your thesis or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So say, like, you're just a really good talker and you could just write out your thesis and defend it, right? And you do that in 6 months. Do you have a mastery and a above mastery in the topic in that 6 months of time? I would say no, right?
No.
Because I think mastery is questioning, reshaping, coming up with an answer, re-questioning what that answer was, reshaping it, and doing that many, many, many times. And that in itself is the mastery. It's not the answer itself. It's the process in which it changes you, not the answers.
It's right. Yeah. It's mastery shows. Yeah. Time is a variable that must be present in that. I don't think you can master something fully, in any short amount of time. It just isn't possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, think about how long you've been writing for, Scott.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 30 some years. Maybe trending. Yeah, I haven't even done the math, but a lot.
Yeah. Now, if we were to take the 18, 19-year-old Scott and that version of Scott didn't land a trick in 2 months, right? That's something that they were working toward. I guarantee they would have a much different response than the Scott that's sitting there here now, right? And the only way that you get to that point is through that work over that time.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I think appreciating the process of how it works at that time. I think if it would have taken you 2 months to land something, it would have been considered impossible, or at least impossible for me if someone else had done it. That would have been my attitude, basically. Whereas now it was like, well, 2 months, that's pretty easy if I can get it down in 2 months.
Yeah, exactly. If there's a trick that you're doing that quickly, is it that challenging?
Yeah.
Right. And I think you could do that with any of your goals. Like if you're doing that within, let's say, I'll say something easier, 6 weeks. You're like, all right, 6 weeks, I want to be able to do this. It's like, well, how challenging is that thing?
Yeah. I mean, similar to strength training or whatever, right? If you're a newbie and I want to put, 25 pounds on my back squat, okay, that's pretty realistic. And I can probably do that fairly quickly. But if I've been squatting consistently for a few decades and I'm really near my physical potential, I mean, 25 pounds could be, a massive goal,
Yeah. And
take a very long time to achieve.
And you'd probably have to sacrifice a lot of other areas to actually accomplish that goal as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Other physical qualities, perhaps gaining more weight than you would want to gain, to achieve it, et cetera.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've been working with a client. He's been doing CrossFit / individualized coaching for like 4 years. And I was like, all right, this person wants some strength and size gains, and they're willing to kind of like, play the game and devote some time to it. And I put them on a 5x5 progression starting at, I think, like 50% of their max or 60% of their max. And they were doing it 3 times a week, deadlift, some kind of pressing variation, and squatting. They would deadlift once or twice a week, alternating the weeks, and they would press 3 times a week, alternating like 2 days a week of strict press, 1 day a week of bench press, and then vice versa. But they would squat every day. So they started off at 60%, and they've added 5 pounds per workout. And again, like we're not talking about like the biggest person in the world. most athletic person in the world, but some experience. And
Yeah.
when they initially tested, let's say it was about 6 weeks ago, they tested their front squat at 195 pounds, and they just did a 5x5 workout at 205.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
come a long way in a short period of time. Yeah.
exactly. And now, like for me, as a coach, when I look at that, I go, okay, if you just spend the time doing what you want to work on and not doing 6 other variables that conflict with that, it becomes a lot easier to manage the training, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
It's like, all right, we're not also trying to do PRR mile time, and then, oh, by the way, they're setting up a business and they have a kid and 15 other variables. It's like, all right, this person is
Yeah.
relatively consistent in terms of their work. They're, financially stable, so they're not worrying about that. They know how to eat at this point, yada, yada, yada. So all the things that they've done over the last 3.5, 4+ years have kind of gotten them to this point. And it's like now you're able to do a basic linear strength progression. So for everybody out there who's kind of like, oh, I'm not making any gains. It's like, well, don't even worry about the programming for now. Let's get everything else going first, and then let's see what just happens in general.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I saw an awesome quote just yesterday on something I was reading. What was it? There's a guy, he kind of combines acrobatics and bodybuilding. So very muscular looking dude, but he's impressive. Like he can, throw himself around like crazy.
Uh-huh.
And I can't think of his name, so I'm not going to do it justice. But basically, I was writing an article on if you want to train and do these things, your goal needs to be to have the easiest job you can possibly have. He says, I do fairly well. I get plenty enough to get by. My job is easy. I can do a lot of it remotely. I don't have to work a ton of hours. I can train. So what do they say? Basically at the end, it was basically said hard jobs are not compatible with hard bodies. Basically, you can't really do both, at least not for very long. If your job is very demanding of your time or your energy, well, your gym work's going to be half-assed, even if you put everything into it, and your results will be too. But if you have a chill job, then you can train hard and actually get results from it. And I was like, yeah, that does kind of make sense. And
You're absolutely right. I mean,
see that.
Just taking myself as that example, I've put in so many hours over the years, and I've always concurrently done training with it, and at times struggled to make big progress. But it wasn't until recently where I'm like, all right, I'm going to simplify everything, keep workouts shorter, do the things that I need to do. And if there are days I come in and I can't train, I won't. Or if there are days I need to take a day off, I will. And it's amazing how we're so attached to the ideas and the concepts that have been put forward toward us, but we don't actually apply our own experience to those things, to those concepts. So that then you make your own training program. So I remember us talking long ago, even during the OPT nutrition stuff. It's like, well, what kind of nutrition program are you doing? Well, it's individualized. It's the Scott Hagnes nutrition. It's the Sean LeBlanc nutrition. But I'm so attached to the outcome of training and to the training itself that I'm unable to do it on my own to say, okay, step back and let's take a look at my training now, and let's take a look at my goals, and let's take a look how you can get to there based upon what you have available. And guess what? If you don't have those things available, it's not going to happen. But working harder isn't going to make it happen.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think not working hard enough is extremely rare in our circle, basically, right? There's definitely a crop of exercisers, if you will, that's a problem, but they're not the people you and I see, or anybody that probably would ever listen to this are seeing. We're seeing the people that are there because they want to make progress. And I don't see. Yeah. But as just a aside, I wanted to mention this, kind of wrapping back around to where we started with the vacation. My wife and I didn't do any of the normal touristy things. We honestly just trained for a lot of hours. I'm still working on this riding contest. I brought my bike. I rode for several hours. She is a soccer player and did a couple hours of soccer drills. And then we would often work out. The place we're staying had an amazing gym with like every specialty bar and super heavy dumbbells. And then like they had like everything in there practically. I had to rush my snatch grip deadlifts off a podium for the week. And then I got there and realized, hey, I can do snatch grip deadlift off podium here. So
Yeah.
And the other thing they had there in the city park, we were just exploring it. Oh, there's a fitness trail, and they usually have a couple little simple things.
Yeah,
right?
I love those things.
We came around the corner to this station, and it was a full straight-up CrossFit station. They had adjustable rings, a full pull-up rig with a bunch of attachments for like every possible grip variant. They had an adjustable box jump, so like a metal shelf you could adjust a whole bunch of heights, wall ball targets, dip station, a GHD type machine. They had a carpeted flat area where if you brought your own sled or prowler, you could push it, or you could do handstand walks or stretching in it. And then a half-mile running loop is all part of this thing. So needless to say, we just worked out and we did recovery hikes, and we worked out and did recovery hikes and went to the brew pub a little bit too, but we were on vacation.
You gotta enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it might have looked like we were overtrained, but we were fully rested and sleeping a ton, and felt great.
Yeah,
it's all in the context of how much else is on the plate, right?
Yes. It makes me, in a lot of ways, when people are bagging professional CrossFitters, like, oh, I don't know if they could do this without PEDs or whatever. I'm re-questioning. I'm reevaluating that in a lot of ways, especially because when you do look at people who just work out, that's literally their livelihood. You're going to get a lot different result than if you're running a gym, waking up at 4 a.m. to coach 3 classes, and then you're managing this and you're, cleaning the floors and that kind of stuff, versus a person who wakes up, eats, goes to the gym, trains, naps, eats, naps, trains again, and then maybe gets soft tissue work or whatever, and comes back the next day.
Yep. Totally.
Like, just imagine you were just on vacation and you felt like $1 million. Just imagine if that was what your regular everyday life was like.
Every day. Yeah.
So
you'd be able to handle a lot more.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. So that kind of wraps around to what we were talking about before. In everybody wants to train harder, but nobody wants to do the things you need to do in order for you to train harder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because
right.
we used the example before of my athlete Myra at regionals. Like, she could not have worked any harder. She could have not have gone harder. She was at her physical limit in terms of her performance. Now, how do we get the limit higher? That's what the magic is.
That's the magic and the question. Yep. Yeah, that's where all those other factors that are difficult to change, but they make all the difference.
But that's what a coach is. A coach isn't someone who programs. That's programming. You can learn that in a book. That's not a coach, right? The coach understands the complexities of nutrition, sleep, stressors, training, and how to juggle all those things at once, and then periodize it, individualize it, and also take the training goals within and make the best training program possible, nutrition protocols possible, and instill a mindset and good habits in order for that individual to push the ceiling of how hard they can work so that they can maximize their performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very well said. So many variables, and programming is just one small detail, honestly, that we as coaches would need to have in our toolbox.
Yeah.
And the best, write the ideal program, but it's no good if these factors that allow the athlete to perform it and get the results from it aren't there. So
and in kind of talking about or thinking, evaluating my own stuff, because before you were like, having stepped away from, the gym for a week or so, coming back and having this fresh flavor, it makes me think about how I can kind of take a step back and reevaluate how I treat clients and work with clients and spend so much time just working on programming, but there's a certain block that I have of broaching nutrition, sleep, and lifestyle for some of the individuals. And, I think that's something I'm going to challenge myself with this summer, is coming up with strategies and, holding myself accountable to actually allow my athletes to become better through those three other factors.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great idea and start, and could really bring some continued better progress and gains.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
something that you do regularly, Scott?
I do a lot of my clients, like, I've gravitated, or people gravitated toward me. Oh, did I lose you?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. People gravitated toward me that were kind of overextended at some point,
Yep.
and we worked to rebuild them. And in one, like every case, lifestyle has probably beat them down more than their training, but they were trying to train in a capacity that they couldn't handle given their lifestyle. So,
yeah,
going back and really trying to work on some of the lifestyle pieces is one of the essential parts of that. So yeah, I mean, that is definitely something that I do. And, as part of whether it's when we have our, individual Skype or in-person talks, or just the way we structure the program to accommodate. And,
yeah.
And then, some people, most of them have demanding jobs, and if there is periods that there's going to be a lot of work stress, like one guy, as an example, has some quarterly things that happen, and we can't, no good productive training's happening here. We're going to try and do just a little bit to maintain, and where other times the program is very set, like, on this day you're doing this and this day you're doing that. When we get to that phase, we have a cycle of things, but they roll as he's able to get them in. This takes a little pressure off him, because he doesn't feel, because he became quite a stressor. Like, I need to get this workout done today, and I just literally have to work till 1 a.m. to get this report done, or whatever it is that he does, and we don't want to add that extra piece, and I don't have to worry he won't do them if he has the ability, because I know he's dedicated enough. So we let it roll. Here's the ones, get through them as you can, and then when this gets back, when you're done with this phase, and we'll get back, we'll push and make some gains, and so becomes a seesaw, teeter-totter.
Yeah. And I think, in the experience thus far of self-evaluation and also evaluating things with clients, I think less is more.
Yeah, generally it is. Yeah.
Yep.
And it allows, higher quality work certainly to be done, even if nothing else.
It's a very good point. I think that's a great piece to leave that on there, Scott. You got anything else out for today?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, what do you got going today there, Scott? More riding?
I'm about to go riding right now, yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
First real session since I got back. I got a little over a week left.
Beautiful. Well, good luck to you and your little challenge there, Mr. Scott.
Yeah, we'll report in next week. I'll be a couple days from it. I hopefully have everything in the bag by that point.
All right. That's what I like to hear. Well, I'm Sean LaFlock. You can get me at Sean@CrossFitDarioBeach.com.
I'm Scott Agnes. You can get me at Scott@CrossFitPortland.com.
Scott, I'll talk to you next week. Good luck, buddy.
Will do, brother.
Take care.
All right. Bye. Take care.